Okay, we're gonna go right to Tiffany. Never mind. We'll just go right to Tiffany. So we're gonna get educated on what's going on with dairy farms, and she has some other information also that we're gonna go over that gets into having our freedom and our rights to choose uh, our own personal treatments, uh, have having that infringed and possibly taken away by our government. So, uh, Tiffany, are you there?
I'm here.
Woohoo! Yeah. All right. So we're ready to get down here today on Smart Health Talk. And hey, this is a dirty business and this isn't pretty. It's
It
not
can't
pretty.
be any dirtier than working in dairy ponds and in human waste.
Uh, so what would you say that one is worse than the other?
I would say that the human waste is worse than the animal manure.
I would agree because animal manure really doesn't bother me, especially if it's on an organic farm.
When
Um,
you're working in a sewer plant, you're working around, just think about this, menstrual cycles, STDs, AIDS, tampons, anything people, pharmaceuticals, anything people flush down their toilets or their drains, everything that comes out of the human body, you are working in that. So that's pretty gross.
It is. It is. And we have a business associate that built and runs 45 water treatment plants. So he has people, they're underground and he builds a park on top. They're really cool. So he does a great job and he shows people where the sewage comes in and the clean water comes out and he takes the glass and puts it where the water comes out and drinks it right in front of them. But
Wow.
he has told us that just like you mentioned, Tiffany, the pharmaceuticals, these other pesticides, these all these different things can still be in the water. And the thing is, he could filter them out. He said I could get it out, but it takes
It's a
special
process.
nanofilters to get those particles out, and it costs extra money and cities do not want to pay for it. So that's why we're getting all this stuff in our water, and that's why I go get filtered water to
You
drink myself.
you cannot drink our water anymore. I can't tell you what year that changed, but I remember when I was working for Vector specifically, I started drinking bottled water specifically because I would be out in the field where there were no amenities, there were no bathrooms, there were no places to have clean containers to drink out of, and so that was the most sterile. Um,
So you just had to
it's
go out there and in nature and out there in the
and
open.
use the restroom. No, I held my bladder a lot, and I would plan my day around the restroom, and so there were two restrooms out. There were marinas, and so I would plan my days around my restroom break because I wasn't just
Well,
going to.
that's not actually very healthy to have to
It's
be.
not, especially when you have toxins in your body and your body's trying to eliminate those toxins. Absolutely, it's not. But it's illegal to go to the restroom out in public because it's public indecency. I mean, you can actually get a sexual. You can become be a sexual pervert. I mean, you can actually get a record for indecent exposure and be, what do they call that when
Oh yeah, indecent exposure. If you were out there like in the open going to the bathroom, then
right.
you could actually get a ticket and get a
and
fine and
and
get
if
in
you had
trouble.
so many tickets, I think it's three, then you are then you'd have to register as a sex offender. So
Really? I didn't know
well,
that. Like if
okay,
people
don't
go to the
quote me.
bathroom in public and they
Please
get
do not
caught.
quote me. Okay, please check that information. But
Yeah.
but but
Well, your memory is probably it came from somewhere, so I have a feeling you probably heard that somewhere.
yeah, it's against the law to urinate on the side of the road or in public, and so if you get, a woman might get away with it, but for men, for sure, I know that that's a big thing. Like, I know that's a big thing, public but we're not talking about that anyway. We were talking about let's stay on topic because I can go south pretty easy. The human waste ponds here in the town that I live in Lodi, what I've noticed is that we have one sewer pond. Our town has grown and continues to build an infrastructure. We have built like a super Walmart. We have a Costco. Uh, um, we've built a Sprouts, which is like equivalent to I can't, man, my memory is just
Well,
really
it's
bad.
kind of like a Whole Foods, but like
Yeah, thank you.
smaller.
It's a whole, thank you, Elaine. Thank you for having my back. It's equivalent to a Whole Foods. And then we have built a bunch of housing. And what is mind blowing to me is that we do not have they're not expanding our sewer plant. They're not creating a larger sewer plant. We do not have the infrastructure to provide healthy drinking water already to the citizens who lived here. They've allowed all this growth, and they have not planned for the waste and the sewage. I pulled out the maps last week because I wanted to show you, and you couldn't see them. I don't know if you went back and you looked at the video. I make myself watch our videos afterwards, and I could see the map on the screen. But I pulled out a map of where our city waste goes. It actually has a direct line into the Delta, which goes straight into to San Francisco to the ocean. So a lot of, just like the dairy farmers are not supposed to leach their dairy wastewater off of their property, it's against the law to dump wastewater into the waters of the U.S., but they do it anyways. And so my point was that that our town has not created a bigger sewer plant or the means to provide for the proper waste facility.
And this is a problem all across the country because
it is, and
because I went to Hawaii the first time I'm staying on Waikiki Beach. They have a sewage spill. So
right.
the first time I finally get to stay on Waikiki Beach, it's a friggin' sewage spill. I could not believe my luck, you know? And all the time here in Southern California, in Los Angeles, we're having spills. I'm not sure if it's like
criminal. It's criminal. They should not allow the building. The planners, the developers should the first thing they should do is they should make the first thing the city managers should do is, and the attorneys, is make sure that the developers who are benefiting and the city who is benefiting from the infrastructure and from the building, that they pay for all of the amenities that are needed. That means they put in a fire department. That means they build the school. That means they pay for the streets. That means they pay for the drainages. That means that they provide for the clean water. They make sure that they can provide water. I mean, when we had a water shortage and they're allowing building, that's just that's bad management skills. You don't build more when you don't have enough to provide.
This whole water issue is just like such a big issue because like people heard about the lead in Flint water. When there is actually 2,000 other water systems around the country that have more lead than Flint. That's how bad the lead is, and this dumbs down our children. And that's just one thing. And
That's a crime.
you're talking, Tiffany, about all you told us about all these other things that that are in the water.
That are in the water. I mean, we one of the my head, when we start talking, my head just starts going in so many directions. I'm a follower, and I highly respect Erin Brockovich. I reached out to her when I first was looking for an advocate. I met her when she has a water expert here, and he's actually from Southern California. I believe his name is Robert Bocock, and they do so much advocacy. And actually, it started about 10 years ago. Jesse Ventura, well, now it's been longer, it's been 15 years. Jesse Ventura used to have a show called Conspiracy Theory, and he had a specific one called Liquid Gold. And it was about, that will blow your mind, but it's about and he was saying, and it was before we started having the issues we're having now. He was warning us when there was actually time to do something about it. Now it's almost too late. Like every time I see one of Aaron Brockovich's posts, they're regular. I mean, if you're not a subscriber on Facebook, you should be. I mean, it's really
Well,
disheartening.
yeah, it's that. And then, like right now, the nitrogen in all these waterways with the algae buildup, like what used to be beautiful lakes, because of the nitrogen runoff from all these like liquid gas fertilizers that they use in our food system, it's so high in nitrogen because it's fake. It's a fake fertilizer.
Right.
It isn't like a compost at all, like a natural fertilizer that we would use. And it puts all this nitrogen into our waterways and it's killing so many of our waterways. And then we have amoebas in there, and who knows? We're just putting these like Chemours, which is a chemical plant over in like North Carolina or South Carolina. I think it's North Carolina, and they make some of these like the Teflon and these other chemicals. All this stuff is going into our water system. We act like, and now we've lifted all these regulations, Tiffany, and Trump is going to allow pesticides to be sprayed directly into waterways without any reporting, without any previous
I
approval.
hate to tell you this, Elaine, but it had already been done prior to Trump's approval. Um, it-
Oh, reality check, Elaine.
Sorry, Elaine,
Goodness.
but that was already going on. So, Trump's just saying, "Hey, why have a legislation when it's not even being complied with?" I mean, I'm not, I don't read his mind. I don't own a television. I don't watch the news, but I can tell you, as a pesticide applicator, it was being done prior to. It was being done in 2004 to 2012. So,
So like from what you've seen and how the system works, where do you think we have opportunities for change and improvement, Tiffany? What kind of things do you, when you're out there working, do you ever like think, gosh, if we did it this way, it would be so much better? Like when,
well, first of all, you'd have to have people that were doing their jobs, and you'd have to have a manager who actually cared that his employees were doing his job. The manager only cared about his bottom line, which was his retirement, his salary, his air conditioning, his status. He was like the model manager before I blew the whistle on him, and
well,
he
what
actually.
about like in procedures, like in the dairy farms, for instance, you told us about how you had to go and like we have to spray because of the excrement created by that type of farming system.
Well,
And
okay, so there's a law. It's the nuisance law, and water is not supposed to be on a property. Standing water is not supposed to be on a property past 48 hours. And if it is, it's a nuisance. And vector control has the authority to issue citations, and heavy citations. So out where I was assigned for the duration of my employment, for during the harassment portion when they were trying to terminate me, I had two irrigation districts that ran parallel to one another. I had Oakdale Irrigation District, and I had South San Joaquin Irrigation District. They both ran different cycles. So one had a 7-day cycle, which would run on. I worked. I had 120, and I had north and south of 120. 120 from Stockton. Well, actually, it's Manteca, and it goes all the way into
Yeah. Are
Yosemite.
there dairy farms all along that highway?
Absolutely, hundreds of dairy farms.
Really?
And
Hundreds?
in fact, the girl who did not have to do her job, the girl who I have a story for you. There was a girl, and she did not have to do her job because she was sleeping with the supervisor. So management brought the supervisor and her from the fields, kept them in the office, created jobs so that they didn't have to be out in the fields because her husband had a gun. He was in the Hells Angels, and he was driving around. He'd already beat the supervisor up. He beat her up, and he was out driving around looking for them and threatening their lives. So the manager brought them in to the yard and started creating these computer systems that they would implement for us to have to use out in the field. We had like 4 or 5 of them, and both of them got to create them, design them. They didn't work. They were garbage. But this girl had all dairies. That's all she had was dairies. And so the supervisors, one of his technicians in his trap, he had like 100 mosquitoes overnight. He was getting 200 mosquitoes overnight in the CO2 baited traps. So the supervisor, the manager's getting on the supervisor who's not out in the field doing his job, and so the supervisor starts jumping on his employee who is out there doing his job every day. So they sent an assistant supervisor, Scott, to go out with Steve, and they went out for like a week, and they were looking for sources, trying to find any place that might be the cause of these high mosquito counts. And Scott, everyone knew, they saw every day that 2 people aren't doing their job. And so Scott goes over to the other side of the road. A road can be a dividing line for a territory. So Scott just goes over into her side of the road and dips and just finds tons and tons of mosquito larvae. So Scott, how would you feel if you were getting reprimanded for doing your job when you were doing it, and then you look and and you see somebody not doing their job and you're getting in trouble for that?
So a big part of this is allocation of responsibilities, and then they hire people for alternative reasons to have an affair with them versus have them work. That this is like totally wrong, and
Well, what ends up happening,
but what about like at the actual site? Like
in
the
this,
way
in this particular story, Elaine, because it's very telling. I mean, when they talk about West Nile, it just angers me because
yeah, we're hearing it on the LA news now. They're trying to like set everyone up saying, "Oh yeah, we're starting to detect."
they want the funding, and so I want to hit on some things. So Scott goes over. He's an assistant supervisor under the supervisor who doesn't leave his office chair. Who's in there with his subordinate, they ended up getting married. They're now married, a married couple there at work. But now the supervisor is retired. But anyway, at that time he was not. And so Scott has he had the cojones, I don't know, he had the strength to walk over to the other side and walk into the office and say, look, this isn't Steve's problem. This is Janine's problem. She's not doing her job. These mosquitoes are coming from her zone. She has all these dairies, and they're not, she's not doing her job. And so the end result of that was the manager, the assistant manager, the supervisor allowed Janine, the employee, to reprimand the assistant supervisor. She's under him, but she reprimands him for going into her territory, into her zone, and she threatens him and tells him never to go over to her side again. So it doesn't matter if West Nile is an issue. It doesn't matter if mosquitoes are an issue. She just doesn't want anybody, pointing out the fact that
And
she's
this
not
could
doing.
affect millions of people because if this leads to an outbreak,
Wait,
then you have to do extra spraying, right? Like
Elaine,
what's the worst case scenario when
they
something
fly.
like this
So
happens?
the worst case scenario, here are the two ways they mop up their mess. Here's the two ways that they mop up not handing out the letters, not doing the water restrictions, not enforcing the nuisance law, and not doing their job is they justify to fly. So the worst case scenario is now we have the adulticide trucks spraying the pyrethrins, which requires a crew of at least 6 employees to be out working 15-hour days spraying. Okay, so when you're spraying that pyrethrin, which is a chrysanthemum flower, when they're out there spraying that, they're working for 4 hours after they've already worked an 8-hour shift in 100 and whatever degree weather. They go out at 6:30 at night and they drive 10 miles an hour, spraying aerosol out of the side of their truck or the back of their truck, and now they are spraying homes, people, waterways, food. There's no unless a person specifically calls and says put me on the no spray list, then they are going to get sprayed without their knowledge,
And they're
without their
probably
consent.
getting drift from because
They want the drift. I mean,
yeah,
we would take sections, huge sections of the county, and they'd spray by truck. And then the worst case scenario is, and this was what I wanted to get into, is Vector. A lot of government agencies, they kind of followed that McDonald's business model where they would buy property, and then the property increased in value. So Vector owned an airstrip in Escalon, and that airstrip was so contaminated because they would do all their crop dusting from that site. So there's a site in Escalon because we have a lot of rice, and then we have a lot of pasture mosquitoes, plus we have the dairy mosquito. There's different species. There's 26 species of mosquitoes in California, and so you have these different species of mosquitoes that have different breeding conditions and different metamorphosis cycles. So the worst case scenario is that then they're flying planes. So then you go from the truck driving aerosol person who's spraying for 4 hours straight at 10 miles an hour, wanting the drift. You want the drift because the pesticide only kills on contact. Supposedly it doesn't have a residual. We know it
so
has a
do you
residual.
pick days that are more windy? Is that
No,
better?
by law, they're not supposed to spray over if the winds are over 10 miles an hour. They're not supposed to spray over anything over 10 miles an hour.
But do they?
Do they need a job? Do
Yeah.
they need, do they need to kill mosquitoes?
Yeah. So I guess they do.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, well
Yeah.
we got like only 2 minutes left, so
Darn it. I always have so much I want to say and never enough
I
time.
know. Well, we should start at the top of the hour next week, so that because just when we start getting rolling, that's when we have to end. So we'll just
I
start it.
know.
We'll start at the top of the hour next week.
Maybe we could talk about the properties and the contamination of the properties. I mean, I know I have
Yeah,
more to add.
I want to talk because a lot of people they go, oh well, when I try to tell someone, they're like, oh well, that's illegal for them to do that. I
Yeah.
said, well,
Yeah.
but they're still doing it,
Yeah.
even though it's illegal,
You know what?
and
But
those
here's the
trucks.
thing: if OSHA's allowing it, if OSHA knows, if the district attorney knows, they are all accessories to a crime, because Vector's committing crimes against humanity, and any agency who has the authority and is allowing it and is not enforcing the laws, they are an accessory to a crime.
Well, yeah, because a lot of things are dying in the process of all this, and
Yeah, our family and friends.
yeah, because you personally know people with cancer. How many of us don't know someone that has cancer, diabetes, or heart disease?
My
I mean,
boss died at 59.
Yeah, that is like way too young. And the stress that these chemicals put on our body, it's just we have no clue. It's so complicated, and yet we're just like dumping all this stuff into our environment like it disappears. It does not disappear, everyone. Okay, it just gets relocated. It reminds me of the Cat in the Hat. You know, the ink. They can never seem to get rid of the ink. It's like people think that this stuff it goes away. It does not. So Tiffany, thank you so much. Thank you so much for today and joining us again and for all your time on this. And everyone, please be sure to go to smarthealthtalk.com, bluemonarchproject.com, and it's Cooltix. Say it again.
It's culixpippian.com.
Okay.
My story working for a special district.
Okay, well, and that's where you go and like do some more reading about Tiffany, and please look at our other past shows that we've had with Tiffany, and you're going to really get an eye opener, everyone, because this is making such a huge impact on our family's health, our environmental health, and our future. And
Elaine,
even
Elaine,
have yeah, go ahead.
Episode 1, is there any way that it's just an audio, but can you put it on YouTube so that I can put it on my blog?
Yes.
All of our interviews are on my blog, but interview 1 just loops.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll work on it. Okay. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Bye.
Right